Welcome to the NBA Coast to Coast podcast brought to you by thelines.com. Coming to you from the West Coast, Josh Lander, joined by my man Nate Weitzer on the East Coast. And we've got a big fat 13-game Wednesday night slate in the NBA after just 3 games last night. We are going to be pleased tonight. Got a couple game videos up for you and our player props as always, so make sure to like and subscribe to that page so you can continue to follow along with us. We're taking a look at the Heat in Boston tonight. Pretty hot, sizzling Heat takes coming your way, I believe. We'll get to all that in just a moment. Also want you to head to thelines.com. That's where we have all of our great written content up for you guys. Nate throws the props up there, and we have our odds finder tool as well that you can go ahead and use to make sure you're shopping those lines to the best of your ability this season in the NBA, getting all that juice back from you guys. Let's go ahead and jump into this 13-game slate, Nate, and then talk Heat in Boston.
Yeah, plenty to choose from tonight, but I am going to talk about the Celtics yet again, of course. Stop me if you heard this, but Hawks -6 at the Magic with Paolo back. Embiid and the Sixers are +4 at Cleveland. Wizards +5 at the Nets. We got Bucks -6 at the Knicks, who are on a back-to-back. The Raptors in a pick-em basically at New Orleans. Pascal Siakam's back for them. The other game we break down, Memphis only -2.5 at struggling Minnesota. Spurs are +5 at the Thunder. The Rockets +11 at the Nuggets. Bulls +6 at Suns. Clippers on a back-to-back are +7 at Utah. The Pacers +4.5 at Kings. Very interesting game there with a 242 total. And then the Blazers, who are on a back-to-back, +5.5 at the Lakers, fresh off blowing a huge lead. So this Celtics game, right, yeah, they're -9, 9.5. It's kind of hovered around there right now. It is a home and home against the Miami Heat. And obviously some key things to watch is I don't know if I really trust that as gospel. I think he could definitely play tonight. Tyler Hero also could definitely play after missing 8 straight for Miami. And their offense has just been putrid without him. But in their last 3, they've at least improved to 11th in defensive rating. They've won 3 in a row because they're number 1 in defense in those wins against Washington twice and Atlanta. Number 1 in 3-point defense, which is, again, something you're going to circle around when you're talking about playing the Celtics, who are attempting threes at a record rate, hitting them at a record rate, scoring a record percentage of points off threes, and that's led to a ridiculous 125 offensive rating while winning 13 of their last 14 here. But the key thing to watch on the other side is Jaylen Brown missed Monday with a neck issue. He's a game-time decision as well, and I don't think he's quite understood how important he is to this Celtics team because Tatum is a top 3 MVP candidate. I mean, if Jalen's out against the Heat in particular, that's a problem. I mean, he's been their spark plug both in the playoffs against the Heat last year and then in his last 3 regular season games against the Heat. He's getting 28 points on 54, 48, 91 splits. The Celtics last year lost 4 of their last 5 games when Jalen was out and those were mostly against good teams. Yes, they beat Charlotte handily, and yes, they beat Detroit handily without him this year, but those are not legitimate opponents, especially Charlotte sat LaMelo, Terry Rozier, and I think at least another wing. I mean, Gordon Hayward's never playing, but they had nobody on Monday, and people, applauding the Celtics for handling their business against both the Wizards and the Hornets with one of their 2 guys out, not taking any nights off. That's great, but I mean, you're facing like cannon fodder on defense basically, and Miami, like I just said, capable of playing the best defense in the league. I mean, on the road this year, they are number 2 in defense. They are number 3 in 3-pointers allowed and 5th in assist to turnover ratio, which is what you got to do with the Celtics is limit that ball movement. Limit their good looks from 3, and I trust Eric Spoelstra to be able to implement a scheme that's going to do that. And the Celtics are not going to beat you down low right now. I mean, they're 26th in paint points. Miami gives you nothing in the paint. They're number 1 in free throw attempts allowed and number 2 in paint points allowed. Bam, his last trip to Boston, 93 individual defensive rating. PJ Tucker had a lot to do with this, but they held Tatum to 6 assists, 4 turnovers, 0 for 5 from 3, -12. And, Jalen picked up that slack, but the Celtics lost. And this was in March, again, during their incredible heater last year. So it's not like we're saying jump on them early. before they got hot. This was when the Celtics were firing on all cylinders. And I just expect the Heat to come into Boston tonight with something to prove, as they always do. If Jimmy plays, you got to love it. You got to love them covering 9. Like, that's almost a freaking lock. There's no way Jimmy and the boys are just going to lay down and fail to cover 9. Miami is a team to bank on. I mean, this year they haven't had their squad to cover as underdogs. But since last year, 19-11 against the spread as road dogs. And they got a little rest advantage here as well as 19-11 in the same span there with the rest advantage since they've been off since Sunday. I just think they come out to play here, which they typically do in Boston. I know a couple blowout losses early last season, but usually when these teams meet, it's a slugfest. It's like an AFC North black and blue game. That's why you see the total at 224, despite the Celtics' ridiculous offensive numbers. I'm not touching the total, but I think if we're expecting it to be low scoring enough, then the Heat are going to stay within single digits.
Yeah, that's my strongest take as well. Side note, Jimmy and the Boys is a great nickname for the Miami Heat, as you said, because they bring it. They're just a bunch of blue collar dudes. I don't want to touch the total. I want to take an under because of the history between these two teams, because they both do well. But they can guard the 3, right? And that's really what it comes down to against both of these teams is like, can you guard the 3? And they both can. I mean, Miami, we know 10th best opponent 3-point percentage. Boston, 12th best opponent 3-point percentage. They're both guarding the 3 well. But this isn't the same Boston team that even, I'm looking at like the last 3 games these teams played, because that's when Boston started to be the Boston that went to the finals, right? Was in like January, and they played in February, in November last year, earliest season, they played to a 95-78 game there in Boston that the Heat lost there, only scoring 78 points. I don't think anybody played. That was like a COVID game or something like that for them. So I'm not taking any stock in that. But on January 31st and later last season, including the one in October earlier this season that the Celtics won 111-104, it was 111-104. The game before that last season, 106-98. You had that 122-92 blowout that the Celtics delivered last January. So that's the summation of the last 3 games. And but I just don't think that those totals are in any way representative of what this Boston team is right now. And that's what I haven't seen as much of, is them stopping this Boston team right now. Now, I mean, a 111-104 loss earlier this season is fine, but it was like the 3rd game of the season. And I don't know how much stock we put in that either, as guys. Look, this Miami injury report all season long has been a full NBA roster. Like, there's like 11 dudes on their injury report, like Duncan Robinson, the rookie Jovic, Haywood Highsmith, been actually a really good backup forward for them, Gabe Vincent, Caleb Martin, Dwayne Dedmon backup center, Tyler Hero, Max Strus, Jimmy, Omer Yurtseven, and Victor Oladipo are all on the injury report right now. Jimmy probably out, as we said again. Max Strus is still probably going to play, but the point is he and Hero, once Hero goes out, now Max Strus goes out. Like, it's not fair. It's not as easy to figure out what's the sort of like commonalities here and what would be the trends from earlier this season. To your point, Miami's not covering quite as well on the road because they haven't had anybody playing for them on the road. I don't know that Jimmy's going to play tonight. If he does, yes, this 9.5 feels like a complete lock. But even without him, the way that they've been playing defense over the course of their last bunch of games anyway still makes you realize, like, Jimmy Butler isn't the only reason that they're able to play really well on defense. I mean, over the course of their last 3 games in this little win streak, I know they played Washington twice in a row, but the fact that they handled Atlanta as well in Atlanta and held them to 98 points. They held the Wizards, who apparently, we just saw them go off for 142. They held them to 107 and 105 points in back-to-back games, both at home for Miami and those, but their defense is just as good on the road this season. So there's nothing really that tells me that Miami can't cover this. 10 points feels too much. I was very happy to go ahead and lay 10.5 and pick the Celtics when they beat the snot out of the Hornets the other night, who did not have Gordon Hayward, who did not have LaMelo Ball, right, who did not have anybody playing that night. This is not the same situation. This is a situation where this is a team that can guard the 3, like we say with Miami, and I think that they're going to completely sell out and let let Boston, not let them, but really just run them off of that line, as you said, in the top 5 in terms of limiting 3-point 3-point attempts, which is huge, right? That's something that doesn't get talked about enough. The opponent 3-point percentage is a big deal, but are you also running guys off the line? Because in today's NBA, if you're not shooting that many threes, you're limiting your opportunities to score as many points as the other team if you're giving up threes. So that's the key here for Miami. I think they'll continue to run them off the line, and then look with Bam back there. Obviously, they're still a little bit light down low in the paint, but they're still Miami, and they're still limiting points in the paint to a good enough degree that I think if they do run these guys off the line, they'll have enough success to keep this game within 10 points.
Yeah, you can run guys off the line when you have Bam back there. I mean, he's the biggest problem, I think, for Jason Tatum in terms of finishing around the rim that there is in the NBA. Still kind of shook from getting his dunk taken out of the rim, basically, in that playoff series 3 years ago. But in general, yeah, when you see him on the fast break against Bam, he doesn't know what to do. He just gets called for like a push-off foul half the time because he's trying to separate from Bam. But yeah, I mean, Miami's defense against Boston has been great in these last 4 regular season games, allowing 106 points per game. Still 37% from three, but limiting those attempts, like you're saying. Limiting the free throw attempts, which is actually where Boston gets a much higher percentage of their points at home right now. They're hitting 3 fewer threes at home because they're getting more down low, but how much of that has to do with the matchups here in a smaller sample size versus Miami, which has given up like nothing in the paint. And then, I mean, maybe this is like a little bit of a scarred Celtics fan take that you've got Kyle Lowry in the Garden, and for whatever reason, he just loves to play the heel at this place. 24 points per game, 9.5 assists per game, 45% from three, with a 124 offensive rating his last 5 trips there. And this is a guy who's very much on the back nine of his career, but he's still out there for sure, ready to keep them in the games somehow. Miami also gets to the free throw line very consistently on the road, scores the highest percentage of points in that way. So that will keep you close in this game. Will keep the crowd down a little bit. I mean, you're going to get unlucky here if both Jimmy and Hero are ruled out. I feel like you'll get at least one of those guys back for this game, because it's like, what have you been resting everybody for, Miami? Like, why have you been playing it safe, if not to step up against the number 1 team in the East and right now the number 1 team in the league? You're gonna have your guys back for this, whether it's Wednesday or Friday, and maybe they stagger them. But if you get at least one of those guys back, I think they can hang.
Yeah, man, this is what we play for. What are we talking about here? if you're not going to play guys during this point, yeah, I think Hero plays tonight for sure, which will be big for their offense, because you're completely right that I could also see this if Hero doesn't play, it would be a pretty big problem for Miami's offense, as we've seen that be pretty stagnant as well, without somebody who can at least initiate, right, which is what you need from Tyler Hero. Nobody can kill your bets like Kyle Lowry. Nobody, the games where you bet against his team and he just comes in and starts throwing up threes as he's falling sideways out of bounds and they go in. And it's just nobody can kill your bets like Kyle Lowry in situations you should win. At any rate, yeah, I would agree. I mean, Boston's winning at an insane rate at home right now, 12.5 margin of victory when they're the home favorites, which has happened 11 times this season. But they're covering, as you said earlier, 72.5% of the games that they're home favorites right now. It's some of those games, they haven't been blowing out Milwaukee or Miami or those teams at home. They've been blowing out, some teams that they should blow out, and even maybe Atlanta you consider a team that shouldn't get blown out. They ran away on that one as well. But either way, this is not the same situation. Spo's going to have his boys ready, Jimmy and the boys. So I feel pretty good about that one tonight. And that is all the time that we have for you guys. So make sure to like and subscribe to that page. Continue to follow along with us, as we'll be back with you each and every weekday this regular season. So until we see you next, happy betting.